Hey, back again, it's Jason. As I mentioned in the previous video, multitasking today, so I'm still doing dishes. I'm going to talk to you about another couple of our stays here. The stays we're going to talk about here, Lakehills, and that's actually just one stop, but it was a pretty fun stop. We stayed at Lake Medina, or Medina Lake, Thousand Trails. And so that was kind of a neat campground. Thousand Trails, of course, is one of our membership campgrounds, so that we can go in there and not have to pay, although they did require a $3 a night upgrade for the 50 amp service, which is whatever. So we stayed, I think, 6 nights there, something like that. Cost us $18. So really that Thousand Trails membership has served us pretty well. We stayed in several of them, most notably Chehalis, which is Washington. We stayed in Pacific City and South Jetty. So those three, plus now Medina Lake, and the current one that we're in that I won't talk a lot about right now, in Willis, Texas, on Lake Conroe, which is also another really great one. So anyway, we stayed at Thousand Trails, and it was kind of interesting because putting it in the GPS, you look and you look and you look and you kind of, okay, that should be workable. And we have an RV GPS, of course, because we have a big RV and we got to make sure we don't run into any low spots for bridges or whatnot. And so you don't trust it completely, but you feel pretty good about it once you kind of looked at it and once you've used it a little bit. So as we were driving in, it was the usual driving because we kind of gotten into a habit there. So it's me and Ethan and Emmett, and then in the chaser vehicle, Maurice. You got Amanda and Belle and Owen and the puppies. And at some point we got separated. And so we just kept driving. I think we knew they were gonna stop off. I think somebody had to go to the bathroom, something, whatever. We got separated. So we kept going, and we come in on the highway, and we're driving, and all of a sudden the highway, the GPS tells me, okay, bear right here. Okay. So I bear right, and it's like dirt roads and like through neighborhoods, and it's tight, and I'm like kind of nervous about it. I said to Ethan, if we have to back out of here, I don't really have anywhere to go. It's gonna be really rough. Well, thankfully, we didn't have to back out of there. It did take us through a neighborhood, and if you're going to Medina Lake, really look at how you come in, because the way that my GPS took me, and I talked to a couple other people that were camping, they said the same thing. It took them through the neighborhoods. You don't want to go through the neighborhoods like that. So anyway, just do your research. 8th Street, I think it is the way you want to come into that particular one if you're ever going over there. And if you're not, now you know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So when we got in there, it's a pretty big park. Probably one of the biggest parks we've ever been in terms of overall size. And they had a few 50 amp service left, which I think we've covered before. We really like 50 amp because we have a pretty big rig. We have our residential fridge over here, plus we have 2 air conditioning units. And if we're running heaters, we want to make sure that we have enough juice coming through for those too. So we really like to have 50 amp because that's going to help us out being, keeping it cool or keeping it warm, whichever one it happens to be. So we found one site right away, and Thousand Trails is listening to this. I hope you don't, because we did what you guys don't want us to do, and we put our red sticker up, which means that we're going to be in that site. But then we said, well, let's go just take a look at a couple other places. So we did, and we did pretty quickly, so I don't feel too bad. But we went around, we looked, and we found another spot that we liked even better. And so the difference really between the two sites, one was width, and the other one was the site that we found that had more width to it also had concrete pad, which was really nice. If you're camping, concrete pad, if you can get that, is the way to go, because it helps you keep level, but it also helps the interior keep clean. So we decided to move to that particular site, and it was a really nice site. We got backed in pretty easily. It was easy access to get in and out of it, so we didn't have any problems setting up, which is always a good thing. And then we started to explore a little bit. And actually, even before we got set up, we started to explore a little bit, because just driving through the park and looking for sites, there were deer everywhere. These were whitetail. They weren't the axis deer that we saw a few of in Sonora. They were whitetail deer. One of the biological factors in the world is that if you have a species like whitetail that are distributed, from north to south, they're always going to be smaller in the south. And they were a lot smaller. The deer body size were smaller. even antlers wise, they weren't real. There weren't a lot of mass to them. Now that could just be genetics in that particular area, but body size was definitely smaller. When we pulled in, we actually had a full size 8-point buck bedded down about, I don't know, 20 yards from our campsite where we ended up camping. So there were deer all over the place, and we actually knew that from the reviews. But it wasn't as bad as what the reviews made it out to be. It actually was pretty nice. It was still fun. The dogs still got excited to see him. I still got excited to see him because I like white-tailed deer. And you know, you would be walking around, and all of a sudden there they'd be. They were not particularly scared of you because they, you know, kind of got used to people over the years. But nonetheless, it was a neat experience, and the park was really big. But the weird part about the park was it was on a lake, but the lake was dry. And you know, for people that are like, oh man, why is the lake dry? Well, there's a lot of factors that go into that. Obviously, the amount of precipitation. West Texas is not known for its precipitation. They get rain, but it's not very often, and it's not very much. But the other thing is use, and so a lot of times it's about using that water in the dam for other things, whether it's irrigation or whether it's a water source for communities. It's used for all those different things, and so basically, I had been told that in June the water level was fairly normal, and by July it was already dropping. By the time we got there, I think we were there in either late November. Nope, had to be December. So we got there in December, and the water was, it was dry. There was nothing there in terms of water. So that was kind of interesting, but it didn't really impact us because we weren't, camping on the lake, and it wasn't something we were going to necessarily be worried about fishing or anything like that. So that didn't impact us too much. What was interesting was that they had water towers, and those water towers were gravity feed, and so sometimes your water pressure was interesting. So it was definitely lower than a lot of the different parks we've been at, and part of that was the gravity feed. They did have some pumps and things like that to try to boost the pressure, but definitely the pressure was different in your water. So other things about Lake Hills, the deer, the dry lake. Oh yeah, we went to Bandera. Owen and no, it wasn't Owen. Emmett, Ethan, and I went to Bandera, which is the nearest bigger town. By bigger, I don't mean like huge. I mean probably a couple thousand people. But it was it's considered the Cowboy Capital of the world, and they gave several reasons for it being the Cowboy Capital of the world. Yes, they self-proclaim it, but they also have the oldest and a lot of dude ranches, and basically a dude ranch to people in Texas is a place where non-ranchers can come to see what ranch life is like. So they have a bunch of those. There also was historic part of that too, where a lot of the cattle were driven through this particular area on cattle drives for selling off at meat markets. So there was that.
I really feel like this is
okay. Amanda's bringing me in, and we got to do this because we're talking about the Cowboy Capital of the world. I love this hat. Amanda's not such a big fan. My nieces were not such a big fan, the couple that I talked to, but you know what? That doesn't matter because I like it. Anyway, so we went to Bandera, and in Bandera they actually have reenactments. So they have a band of actors that are all garbed up, and they do this. I don't know if it's every weekend for sure, and then probably during busy times, they might do a little bit more. But it was at the visitor center. So we stopped in the visitor center, and we got there, and we got to see the first part of the show. However, Ethan, you're making so much noise. However, about 1.5 skits in, now maybe it was after 2, all of a sudden we heard sirens, and they kind of stopped the show to kind of figure out what was going on because the fire trucks had stopped literally right next to us. And apparently one of the old shops, the building had been there for who knows how long, basically started on fire, an electrical fire. So anyway, the boys got deputized. They realized it was going to take a little bit of time, so they stopped the show, said, hey, we'll try again at 1 o'clock because they do a couple of shows a day. But they said we can deputize the kids. So got the kids deputized, and then we decided we were going to go out and see the town of Bandera. And it's not a big town. It's, like I said, it's a small town, and almost everything is right down one strip. And so down that strip we walked. And we stopped off at a cafe, and we had lunch, and it was pretty darn good food. And then from there, we kind of had walked around a little bit and saw a little bit, but we wanted to do a little shopping maybe. And Emmett, boy, from the time we started this trip, he said, I can't wait to get to Texas. He loves Texas. And I don't know if he ever gave us a reason why he loved Texas, but that's what he said. I can't wait to get to Texas. He always said, I want to be in Texas for my birthday. And that actually might happen because we're still in Texas. He said he wanted to get a cowboy hat. So, of course, being Cowboy Capital of the world, they had several different places with cowboy hats and Western wear. So we stopped off at one of the Western wear stores there. And he went through several different hats. He was just trying them on. And then actually one of the salespeople came up and said, hey, would you like some help? And they were super helpful in, telling us what to look for in that particular hat for him. And even the hat that he really liked, it didn't quite fit. They had a couple of different sizes, and none of the sizes really fit. So the salesman actually put it on his head, took a look, and added a little bit of foam for him, because he's obviously going to grow, and he's got long hair, and if his hair gets longer, whatever. But anyway, they went out of their way to make sure that he had a cowboy hat that would fit. And he actually just was here and had it on, but he went outside. So,
Wow.
But he got a white one, I got a black one.
Cowboy hat.
So, and they're not the felt ones, although that's what all the Texans said was, well, it's felt season because that keeps your head warmer. Well, we got kind of the straw wicker type of hat, but we both look good, I think. Right, Phil?
Yeah.
Come on over. Emmett's going to show you his hat. There he is. So I think we look pretty darn good. Again, he's got the white, I've got the black. And we'll just do one of these. Howdy, ma'am. How you doing, sir? Good day. All right. So that was Bandera. What else did we do? Oh yeah. So San Antonio is about, 40-45 minutes from Bandera, or from Lakehills. So we decided that we were going to take everybody in, including the dogs. We actually did some research, and a few years back I had actually been looking at going to San Antonio. I don't remember exactly for what, but I was super excited about it because I was told the Riverwalk was absolutely amazing, and that was something we had to do if we got ourselves near San Antonio. So we did a little bit of research. The Riverwalk actually happens to be right by the Alamo. So we decided we would go to the Alamo and we would go on the Riverwalk. And turns out that dogs were allowed everywhere on the Riverwalk. So we decided to take the pups in. So we drove into San Antonio, which was interesting because at some point Amanda kind of hurt her back and wasn't able to really do a whole lot of anything. And so we got her to loosen up enough where she could move around and felt comfortable going into San Antonio. So we all went into San Antonio. We parked probably, I don't know, what was it, a block from the Alamo. There's parking downtown. Parking is kind of expensive, but that's just part of the deal if you're going to go visit some of those things. So anyway, there's a fly on the camera. So we went down there. We looked at the Alamo. They were actually doing a reenactment down there with muzzle loaders, and so we were walking around, and all of a sudden, boom! Like, oh, that was really loud. So
yeah, the dogs didn't like
the dogs were not big fans.
Humor was more coherent with covering ears. Zoe would not touch you.
So we basically walked around San Antonio, just a small part of it. There were actually several restaurants that were dog friendly that we could have had the dogs. They had a lot of outside seating, that type of thing. And the one that we talked to the most was German themed. So, which is funny, of course, if we're from Wisconsin, and not that we're necessarily there is some German heritage for us, but that's not necessarily the big part of our our heritage, but it is a big part of Wisconsin heritage. So lots of German themed stuff there. Obviously, their food was like bratwurst and different types of sausages. We took a look at maybe getting some Mexican. In the end, I don't even think we ate down there, if I remember correctly.
I think we just kind of went back to the car and
Yep.
snacked and then ate something when we got home.
So there were some other things there. There was a really nice mall actually right there that we didn't really spend any time, too much time in. But one of the neat things was there was actually this little island out so the river walk has water flowing everywhere, and so there's a little tiny island that Santa was on, sitting there waiting for kids at the mall. So it was a neat mall. San Antonio was pretty neat overall, but I don't think we saw a lot of what there is actually to see along the Riverwalk. I think we just did a small portion. They actually have tours, boat tours that drive through on the canal, and that's in there. And so there were other things that we could have done, but of course we were trying to really make sure that Amanda didn't get worse. So she didn't. She stayed loosened up, and that was good. So again, that's Lake Medina, Lakehills sometimes it's called. The neat thing about that whole area, it's West Texas. It's west of San Antonio. A lot of hills, and that's again the name Lakehills. Reminded me a lot of La Crosse in terms of just like bluff type of area almost, and just a really really picturesque area in parts. Not everywhere. Some of it was just still super duper flat. But the part that we were from, that we had to drive through from Medina Lake into San Antonio, had quite a few hills, quite a few twists and turns. It was kind of a neat area. We actually all really really liked that campground. It was pretty quiet when we were there. I'm told it gets pretty busy during the summer. But it was one of our favorite campgrounds, and we all said, oh, we could come back here and work and stay and play. But in the end, it's a pretty long drive from San Antonio, and there's not really much else in that particular area. So, but it was a really good experience. We really enjoyed it. So hopefully you're enjoying our videos and you want to continue to watch our videos. Again, we're going to video several of them today just because we are so far behind. Here it is already. Today's actually the 5-month anniversary of our leaving. So on our trip. So we are pretty far behind. We haven't even talked about Christmas yet, which was a neat thing. That's the next video. I'm not sure if I'm doing that or if it's a combination of things, but from Lake Hills, from Lake Medina area, we ended up going down to Corpus Christi, and that's the next video that we'll talk about.